યસ પાર્થ,
યસ, ગુડ ઇવનિંગ.
ગુડ ઇવનિંગ. મને બતાવો ને તમારું સ્ક્રીન શેર.
એક જ મિનિટ. ડિસેબલ છે.
ચાલુ રાખો, કરી આપો. અનિલભાઈ શાહ પણ આપણી જોડે સાઉથ ગુજરાત ટેક્સ પ્રેક્ટિશનર એસોસિએશનના પ્રેસિડેન્ટ છે. હેલો.
નો પ્રોબ્લેમ. આવી ગયા જોઈન આવે છે.
હા, એટલે હજુ હવે આવશે, પણ મેં એમને લિંક મોકલી દીધી છે.
ઓકે.
સ્ક્રીન શેર હવે કર્યું, હવે જુઓ તો.
નો, ડિસેબલ.
સ્ક્રીન શેર ડિસેબલ બતાવે છે.
એટલે હોસ્ટ હેઝ નોટ એનેબલ્ડ એવી રીતના. હોસ્ટ ડિસેબલ્ડ પાર્ટિસિપન્ટ સ્ક્રીન શેરિંગ. કેમ પાર્ટિસિપન્ટ આવે? મેં તો
પાર્ટિસિપન્ટ નથી ને એટલા માટે.
પણ ના, એટલે મેં તો પેલામાંથી લોગિન કર્યું છે.
તમે પેનાલિસ્ટ છો ને?
હા, તમે એમાં એ લિંકમાંથી જ લોગિન કર્યું છે.
કે આપણી પાસે 38 જણ જોડાઈ ગયા છે. પાર્થ,
આઈ નો. ફરી લોગિન કરું?
ના, એક જ મિનિટ. મને અહીંયા સ્ક્રીન શેર, તમે ફરી લોગિન કરો તો પાર્થ.
હા, આઈ વિલ એક્ઝિટ એન્ડ લોગિન અગેન.
અનિલભાઈ કેમ છો?
કેમ છો? ગુડ આફ્ટરનૂન પાર્થભાઈ, ગુડ આફ્ટરનૂન. ઝીરો નંબર લઈ આવે ચશ્મા ટ્રાન્સપરન્ટમાં પડેલા છે. પાર્થભાઈ, ગુડ આફ્ટરનૂન.
ગુડ આફ્ટરનૂન અનિલભાઈ, કેમ છો?
બસ બસ ફાઇન. વાળ એકદમ ઓછા કરી નાખ્યા ને. પાણી છે
હવે પાર્થ? પાર્થ હવે?
ના, નથી. આઈ કેન નોટ શેર ઇટ. ડિસેબલ્ડ જ આવે છે.
એક જ મિનિટ. હા, હવે મારે ઝૂમના સેટિંગ પર જવું પડશે એટલે.
ખરેખર આને બહુ સરસ.
હવે જુઓ તો
નો.
યસ હવે થવું જોઈએ જુઓ.
ના, નથી થતું.
હવે તો મેં તમને ઓથોરિટી આપી દીધી.
કારણ કે it keeps showing participant screen sharing. It doesn't show panelist screen sharing.
Two, either theory of English law, namely of implied condition, or interpreting the contract as a reasonable man, has no application in India, as we have statutory provisions in India, namely section 32 and 56. The third is very vital. If there is an express term in the contract which absolves a party from performing such as a force majeure clause in a contract, the case would squarely fall in section 32 of the Contract Act and not under section 56. Even if the court reads an implied condition in the contract absolving the party from performing his promise, the case would again fall under section 32. Now, this is very important because in India, either it is because of contingency that the contract is absolved if the contingency is not fulfilled or becomes impossible of performance, or even otherwise it is impossible. So there is no objective purpose of reading into a contract any implied condition. But you can read into it. But the moment you read into it an implied condition in the contract, the case will squarely fall under section 56 and section 32 and not under 56. But if you cannot read any condition in the contract, the case will fall under section 56. When there is no clause in the contract, nor can any clause be read into the contract as an implied condition, and an untoward event has happened making it impossible for the party to perform, the case would fall under second paragraph 56 of the Contract Act, and the contract will become void due to supervening impossibility. When there is no definite time limit, this is important, agreed by the parties within which the contract was to be performed. In this case, there was no time limit, as I told you the facts. There was a requisition for 4 or 5 years. The land had gone from 41 to 45 or 46. But there was no time limit for the company to give land to Mr. Ghose. Now, when there is no definite time limit agreed by the parties within which the contract was to be performed, it cannot be said that delay in performance due to requisition would frustrate the contract. This becomes relevant because our lockdown is also going to be temporary. Our pandemic situation is also going to be temporary. It may be 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, but it is not a permanent impossibility. If contract becomes impossible of performance because of supervening events, the contract on its own becomes void and parties are discharged from performing it. It is not a case of avoiding a contract. It's not a case where one party can avoid the contract. The contract ipso facto becomes void. Next slide. Another case, next slide. Another case, also of the same company with identical facts. But this case is AIR 1965, Supreme Court, Mugniram Bangur versus Guru Bachan Singh, identical facts. He was another person who had booked a land, piece of portion of land. And same contention raised by Mugniram Bangur and company that the contract is frustrated because of requisition. Identical facts. But this judgment becomes a little more relevant because it is little more elaborate as far as temporary impossibility of performance is concerned, with which we are concerned presently. Temporary impossibility of performance will not discharge the contract unless time was of such essence, that is when performance within time was an essential condition of the contract, And if not performed within the time, the very foundation of the contract would stand frustrated. So we will have to answer the questions which are generally being posed in light of the fact that temporary impossibility will not result in frustration unless time is of such essence that the contract has to be performed at that particular time. Next slide. This also is a very vital judgment. I'm not going into the facts of the judgment to avoid unnecessary delay. I have already given facts for one or two judgments, 2 or 3 judgments. Here the principle which is laid down and which I have quoted, which I read also, are simple. Monetary burden to perform the contract is no ground to absolve the contract. For example, you have entered into a contract with a party to supply pipes. The steel price at the relevant time was, say, 100 rupees a kilo or whatever the price. Suddenly the market prices goes up to 500. If you have to supply those pipes and you have to buy at 500 rupees, you are going to suffer a huge loss. That is no ground to avoid a contract. This also becomes relevant in the present day times, because there are questions which crop up that if it becomes more burdensome because of change in prices, are we required to perform it? The answer would be yes, provided the contract was not such where time was the essence of the contract, in which case you can avoid it. Or if there is a force majeure clause, you have to read the force majeure clause and interpret it. Next slide. This also is very vital, and I want you to, I'm dealing with 4 or 5 vital judgments and then laying down all the principles. This is a very vital judgment. An executed lease, it cannot be said to be a contract which can be frustrated under Section 56. The facts were like this, that a party took on leased land, paid the money, took on leased land in district Montgomery of undivided state of Punjab for the Kharif season of 1947 and Rabi season of 1948. Kharif season is monsoon and Rabi is winter. He took this land for that purpose, for cultivating the land, and he paid the money for the land. On 15th August 1947, there was a partition. The appellant shifted from Pakistan to India. Land remained as a part of East Pakistan, which went to East Punjab, which went to Pakistan. It was impossible for him to cultivate the land, even if Pakistan government permitted it, because of the law and order situation. So he came out with the fee that the amount which I have paid should be returned to me, because the contract is frustrated. The Supreme Court held that it is not possible because this is a lease. It's an executed contract. And 108 of the Transfer of Property Act, subsection E, I think, C or E, would apply, and no other ground can be raised for avoiding the contract. He cannot be entitled to the lease rent, which he has already paid, in spite of the fact that he cannot cultivate the land. Almost identical facts arose, same slide, arose in Sushila Devi versus Hari Singh. But there was one difference. There was no lease deed there. There was only an agreement to lease. Actual lease deed was not executed. Land in Pakistan agreed to be taken on lease, could not be utilized. The lease would, agreement to lease would get frustrated because it's an executory contract not an executed contract. Next slide. I am referring to this judgment because it is a recent judgment. It doesn't lay down any new principle, but for the benefit that nowadays it's a fashion that we should deal with the last judgment available. So I'm dealing with this judgment. Here, a piece of land was offered by DDA to Kenneth Builders for development. Kenneth Builders were not able to develop the land in spite of petitions filed to get environmental clearance, because that particular piece of land was a ridge land, falling in a ridge or a ravine area of the possibly Yamuna River. I'm not very sure, but ridge area. So they had deposited huge sum of money with the DDA. DDA was refusing to return the money. And a suit was filed to contend that the contract has been frustrated. Supreme Court held that the contract stands frustrated, and DDA is bound to return the money which it has got on the basis of tenders which it had invited, pursuant to which Kenneth Builders was the successful bidder. Next slide. Energy watchdog. I have not given the facts, but facts become relevant. 2 power stations in Gujarat presently. Coastal Gujarat belonging to Tata, and Adani Power, or whatever the name of the company, I'm not very sure, belonging to Adani. Both are situated in Mundra. GUVNL invited tenders for purchase of power. And the tender was that you quote your tariff. They quoted their tariff. They quoted their tariff on the basis of the contracts which they had entered into with Indonesian suppliers for supply of coal. Already contracts were entered into. At a particular price, the coal will be supplied for 10 years or 5 years, whatever the period, 20 years. So the price of coal was already known to them. On the basis of this price of coal, they submitted the tender. Indonesian law underwent a change, and the contracts were declared, the price for the purpose of contracts were declared inoperative by Indonesian law. And that the price at which any party in Indonesia can sell coal was to be the world market price of such coal. This resulted in a substantial hike in the price of coal, and it was so high a price of coal that running the power plant would mean per unit loss for both these institutions, both these generating companies. They challenged this before the GERC, Appellate Authority, all the way to the Supreme Court. In the Supreme Court, their contention was that the contract is frustrated by an unforeseen event. But before we go into the unforeseen event, there was a force majeure clause there, which is important. And the force majeure clause covered change of law of India, but not foreign law. And force majeure clause did not cover a situation of Indonesian law undergoing a change. In the facts of the case, the Supreme Court held that once there is a force majeure clause, impossibility cannot be pleaded. 56 will not come into play. It will be falling under 32. If your case falls under 32, well and good. If it doesn't fall, it doesn't fall. And it said that it doesn't fall, so the price at which they have agreed to supply to GUVNL, they have to supply. I believe that after that, the government of Gujarat and Adani and others have modified their contracts, because otherwise, I don't know what would have happened. The two units would have, both the units would have closed down completely. Now, this law in this judgment is only a reiteration of the law laid down in Satyabrata Ghosh and Alopi Prasad. It is not laying down any new law. But since it is a recent judgment, it is AC chalu karo. It is a recent judgment of the Supreme Court. I'm sorry, I had not switched on the AC and I was perspiring. I have to deal with it. Let me just enumerate the principles which are laid down in this judgment. All of them are quotations from the judgment itself. I have picked up 4 lines and quoted them. It was further held that where court finds that the contract itself either impliedly or expressly contains a term, according to which performance would stand discharged under certain circumstances, the dissolution of the contract would take place under the terms of the contract itself, and such cases would be dealt with under section 32 of the Act. If, however, frustration is to take place because the contract, it will be governed by section 56. 2. Parties to an executable contract are often faced in the course of carrying it out with a turn of events which they did not at all anticipate. For example, a wholly abnormal rise or fall in prices, which is unexpected, obstacle to the execution. This does not in itself get rid of the bargain they have made. Now, this is direct decision of Alopi Prasad. The first one is from Satyabrata. Second one is from Alopi Prasad. The court has no general power to absolve a party from the performance of its part of the contract merely because its performance has become onerous on account of an unforeseen turn of events. Again, Alopi Prasad. Lastly, it is clear from the above that the doctrine of frustration cannot apply to these cases, as the fundamental basis of the PPAs remain unaltered. Price increase in Indonesian coal, making it more onerous, doesn't change the terms of the contract. Nowhere do PPAs state that the coal is to be procured only from Indonesia at a particular price. In fact, it is clear on reading the PPA as a whole that the price payable for supply of coal is entirely for the person who sets up the power plant to bear. Next slide. I have now given a short synopsis insofar as law of frustration in India is concerned. English law will have limited application, but I cannot say that it will have no application. Because for determining what is impossible, you can always look up impossible English law. But I do not think that is at all an issue presently. Admitted position is that it is an impossibility of performance. The issue is whether you are absolved or not. That is the issue. In an executed leases, section 56 has no application. 1. Merely because the contract has become more onerous to perform is no ground to treat it as impossible of performance. Wherever there is a force majeure clause, the parties will be absolved from performance in terms thereof, as per that terms thereof, under section 32 of the Contract Act. Section 56 will have no application. Where there is no force majeure clause in the contract, section 56 would apply. Section 56 will have application where the very foundation upon which the parties rested their bargain. Supposing in the last judgment, Energy Watchdog, the foundation of the contract between the parties, that is between GUVNL and Adani, was that you have to procure coal only from Indonesia, then it would have been a different situation altogether. Bargain. It would not mean that the performance of the act may become literally impossible, but even if it is impracticable and useless from the point of view of the object and purpose which the parties had in view, the contract would stand frustrated. Temporary force majeure event, unless time is the essence of the contract, will not frustrate the contract unless so provided in the force majeure clause in the contract. Now with this, I am going to some of the issues. I am raising the issue and then I propose to answer them to the best of my capacity and ability. And yet I would say that some court of law can take a different view than what I have expressed. And either you may be the beneficiary or the other side, we do not know. Whether a lessee is required to pay rent when he is required to completely close down the premises pursuant to the lockdown and his business has come to a grinding halt, my answer is yes. Section 56 has no application to a lease, executed lease, and therefore you would be continue to liable to pay rent. This is laid down in Dhruv Singh's case, AIR 1968 Supreme Court, which I have referred earlier. Whether it will make a difference if he is a licensee and not a lessee? Now, this is a very vexed question. But before I answer this, when you take a premises on license, why it is a vexed question, I will tell you. When you take a premises on license, usually say a shop in Alpha Mall, you may not take it on lease. The reason why you have taken it on license is not because you don't want to take it on lease, because the lessor doesn't want to give you on lease and he prefers to give you on license. But you are in exclusive possession. So in law, it would become a lease and not a license, one. But the lessor himself may not want it to be a lease, so he may prefer to keep it a license. But assuming it is a license also, it is still, there is no judgment in India. It is still an executed contract. And my view would be that you would be liable to pay the license fee throughout the contract. The only advantage in a license can be that you can walk out of the premises, which I think nobody wants to do. That's a different thing altogether. Next. Whether as per the terms of the lease, if lessee has to perform certain obligations, such as providing security, lift services, and other peripheral services, if the lessor is unable to do so, can the lessee refuse to pay rent? My answer would be that if the lessor is unable to do so, you can file a suit claiming damages, but you are not absolved from paying rent. He may have a defense that it was impossible of performing that particular part of his performance, again, where the issue would arise that it's an executed contract and such a defense may not be available. Next. Now, this is a third slide where I have reproduced an actual clause in a lease agreement for the benefit of, because there will be different clauses. I do not have all the possible clauses, but there could be innumerable permutations and combinations of clauses, and we will have to, in each case, interpret them. Neither party will be liable for or will be considered to be in breach of or default under this deed on account of any delay or failure to perform as required by this deed as a result of any causes or conditions that are beyond such parties' reasonable control and not caused by negligence or default of the party, including but not limited to fire, flood, damage by elements of peril of sea or air, accidents, act of God, revolution, civil disturbance, breach of peace, declared war, and that such party is unable to overcome through exercise of commercially reasonable diligence. My view is that this is a wide enough clause to perhaps cover lockout. In any event, by implication, you can cover lockout. If any force majeure event occurs, that the affected party will give prompt written notice to the other party and will use commercially reasonable efforts to minimize the impact of the event. If the force majeure condition extends beyond 60 days from the date of occurrence, only the lessee shall have an option to terminate the lease without any liabilities. Now, three things. One, 2-month notice has to be given. This can apply only for a period of 2 months. 3, it can, at the end of 2 months, you will have to say, if you are a lessee, that I want to vacate, otherwise you'll have to start paying the rent. 4, perhaps this situation may not even absolve you on interpretation, because on account of any delay or failure as required by this deed, as a result of any causes or conditions, I would argue, if I am for the landlord, that the cause or condition only stopped you from carrying on business. It never stopped you from paying rent. And this is a force majeure clause in a lease deed. But here the terms of the clause would operate and not section 56. Next slide. When companies have borrowed monies and are required to pay interest, the RBI notification only absolves them from paying till 30th June. But the liability still continues. Can they claim that they are not liable to pay interest during this period? My answer is clearly no. I have multiple reasons for it. One, I'm not talking of the notification of the government, which may absolve you. Today, it may absolve you for all times to come by law. That's a different thing. But otherwise, you have borrowed money. Your monies are lying with you. Therefore, you are bound to pay as per the terms of the contract. There is nothing to frustrate the financing contract which would entitle you to say that you are not liable to. Next. Now, this is another interesting issue. Many times, as per the terms of the agreement, there are certain financial parameters which are required to be maintained by the company. Now, as a result of lockdown, those financial parameters, it may not be possible to maintain. And if they don't maintain under the terms of the financing documents, the bank or financial institutions can take action, even recall the loan and recover the money. In this case, the borrower would be entitled to contend that because of inability to perform, I was unable to maintain the financial parameters. And this may be a reasonably good defense in a court of law. But before I go to the next slide, but it depends how long. Say, supposing it is you are not able to maintain for 3 months, or even for after the 3 months of lockdown for further 3 months, or 6 months after that, would you be still not after that be required to maintain? The answer would be yes, you will have to, after a reasonable time, maintain the parameters. Now, whether employers who have employed persons on contract, are they required to pay salaries to such employees in spite of no service received from such employees? Yes. But if under the contract you can terminate their services by giving them 1 month's notice or 2 months' notice, you can do so. But otherwise, you are required to pay salaries to them. Who have employed permanent employees, are they required to pay salaries? Answer is obviously yes, it's a contract. You have to fulfill that contract. Apart from contract, the services cannot be terminated if they are not a white-collar job. The services cannot be terminated in case of workers. It can only be terminated if you are not a worker, because there only the principle of hire and fire would apply. This is a very moot question, whether the units can refuse to fulfill their purchase and sale obligations. My answer is, are the contracts under which you have to perform such that time is the essence of the contract? If time is the essence of the contract, this temporary lockdown or temporary pandemic situation will absolve you from performing the contract. But if time is not the essence of the contract, it will not absolve you from performing the contract. But it will all depend on facts of each case. Next. Whether airlines can refuse to refund the airfare on the ground that they are still willing the moment lockdown is lifted on the day convenient to the passenger, or whether passenger can claim that there is frustration of contract and you must refund the amount. I am of the opinion that in an air travel, time is always the essence of contract. You are traveling today, irrespective of what purpose you are traveling. Today is the date on which you want to travel. Time is the essence of the contract. And if they have not performed because of frustration, the contract shall stand. You cannot claim anything from them, nor can they retain the ticket fare which they have recovered. Unfortunately, if they do not refund it, parties will have to move consumer forum most probably. And how many will be able to move is a different situation altogether. That's a practical problem which parties may face. In light of the above, in all cases referred to above, the best and the wisest solution is not to let the matter go to a court of law. Renegotiate and see that the contracts continue to be fulfilled. That is how I would put it. I complete my lecture with this. Thank you very much for listening to me patiently for almost 55 minutes.
Sir, we have a few queries. With your permission, I may read them out one by one and you may consider answering them.
Or you can ask them to read. I have no issues either way. Now.
Sir, everybody else is muted. So they have posted the queries on the Q&A
yes.
window. So I can just read them and maybe you can deal with it. The first question is whether a claim of force majeure can be upheld even in absence of such clause in the agreement.
Yes, it can be upheld in absence of clause. It will fall under section 56 of the Contract Act if it falls within the four corners of the law which is laid down by the Supreme Court.
Correct.
Force majeure is an event. There can be, it is divided into two parts. Either you have a clause in the contract or you don't have a clause in the contract. If you have a clause in the contract, read the clause, interpret the clause. If you are falling within it, you will be excluded. If there is no force majeure clause, if it's a force majeure event, you can be excluded under section 56, provided it is a permanent impossibility, and it should be an impossibility, first of all, and it should be a permanent impossibility. If it is temporary, it will be subject to whether time is the essence of the contract or not.
So dates of performance of a contract can be reset through negotiation between parties. But how do you deal with a value difference which may arise out of changed circumstances when time
that also will have to be renegotiated if at all. Otherwise, you are liable to supply at the price which is negotiated.
Correct.
Because if time is not the essence, if time is the essence, the contract gets frustrated. Otherwise, the contract survives. So you have to supply later point of time at the same price.
Sir, in case of an employer-employee contract where job offer letter states a 30 or a 60-day notice period, are those retrenchment clauses enforceable in the times of COVID if the employer is facing financial crunches?
Yes, but you will have to pay 2 months' salary.
Impossibility, frustration and force majeure limited to the lockdown period or beyond?
Very difficult to answer. It will be a question of fact which will have to be proved in a court of law that lockdown period was 60 days, but actual performance was impossible for more than 60 days, even for 90 days or 120 days, because of multifarious factors. no workers. All had gone away to their village. So many factors could be there. No supply chain. Nothing has been received. So then the period of force majeure may be more than 2 months. But whether that will absolve or not is a different issue again.
Correct. So if as per the contract entered between parties, A needs to return amount to B, and the deadline as per the agreement is April 2020. If A fails to return the money, then penal interest at 12% would be charged. This is simple force majeure clause in the agreement. Can A trigger force majeure to refrain himself legally from paying damages, which are in the form of penal interest?
There is a force majeure clause in the agreement.
Yes.
If that force majeure clause is wide enough, you may be able to defend yourself on the payment of penal interest. Depends on the clause.
Correct. The next question, sir, is that as you said, the COVID-19 is a temporary event. So if there is no force majeure clause in the agreement, then section 56 will apply. However, any act will not become impossible since this being temporary event, section 56 might have little application in COVID situation. Kindly clarify.
I think I have clarified this. Even in a temporary situation, 56 will apply. But provided the contract which is entered into, we forget the force majeure clause. There is no force majeure clause. 56 will operate, but it will operate provided time was the essence of the contract. Kindly see the two first judgments, 1965 Supreme Court and 1954 Supreme Court. Because they held that since time was not the essence of the contract has to be performed. But if time was the essence of the contract, for illustration, airlines, I am buying a ticket to go to Delhi because I want to be in Delhi on a particular day. I may never want a ticket thereafter. So time is the essence. In that case, frustration will come into play.
In case of a contract does not have force majeure clause, then in that situation, can it be considered as an implied condition due to government directives and it was not required to be specified?
I will not be able to answer because this is a very vexed area. See, there are two situations. I'm explaining it a little because I am also not very sure of this. The Energy Watchdog judgment has taken the view that if there is a force majeure clause, you have to see only section 32 and you are relieved only at the section 32 of the Contract Act and 56 has no applicability. I do not agree with that view completely. If there is a force majeure clause can be of 2 or 3 types. It can be a force majeure clause where you can read in further clauses. There can be a force majeure clause which says that only these events and none others. And there may be a force majeure clause which may be stating these events but not stating none others. Now in that situation, there are 2 ways of dealing with it. One, the court can say that this is an implied term, or court can still say that I don't want to go into the implied condition. I will treat it as a failure because force majeure clause doesn't say and none others. Suppose the force majeure clause has said earthquake, flood, and riots, and none others. Then technically a government lockdown will not fall in force majeure. But still, in that situation, you cannot perhaps invoke 56. But if the force majeure says flood, earthquake, riots, keeps it quiet, then there are 2 ways of dealing with it. Either you include that as an implied condition and treat it as the 32, or even otherwise you can treat it under 56. But I am not sure. The law is not very clear. In fact, the law says that wherever there is a force majeure clause, 56 may not apply. But that also is not very categorically stated.
So the next question is, if an industry has subcontracted an agency for requirement of laborers, is the principal contractor liable to pay wages, or it is only the subcontractor?
I believe only the subcontractor, but this will have to be seen from the Contract Labor Legislation Act. What is your liability? And the workers may be able to establish that you are the only person who is really liable. But otherwise, it's a subcontractor. You have no privity of contract with the laborer.
If in the development agreement, displacement compensation is to be paid to all tenants or members on a monthly basis, and if the same is not paid because of COVID, then as per force majeure clause, what will happen?
Can you repeat it again? I'm sorry, yes. I didn't.
If in a development agreement, displacement compensation is to be paid to all tenants or members on a monthly basis, and if the same is not paid because of the COVID situation, then as per force majeure clause, what will happen? So maybe there may be a clause or there may not be a clause.
But my view is that you are liable to pay. Displacement compensation will continue to be payable. You have to pay monthly basis. Therefore, you continue to be liable to pay on monthly basis. But I will not be able to answer unless we see the nature of the agreement. But I believe that suppose it's a displacement compensation, usually it is a lump sum. But suppose it is a monthly compensation. How is it relevant whether you can, because of the COVID, how are you not able to pay? You are not able to carry on your business, but displacement has already taken place. You are liable to pay. Are they going to come back to that premises? What is the situation? I don't know.
So the next question is, in contract to avail the services which are dependent on the continuous operation of the industry, which is disrupted on account of corona, can force majeure be enforced?
Again, I'm not getting clarity of what the question is.
In a contract to avail the services which are dependent on a continuous operation of the industry.
Can somebody explain what it means? How
So
would the service contract dependent on a functioning of the industry? How would it happen?
No, so basically in a service contract where you have to deliver continuous services, if it gets disrupted on account of corona, can force majeure be enforced?
It depends on the clause in the contract or whether there is no clause. Then whether that services were, whether that performance became, was a performance which where time was the essence, I do not think it will much apply. It's like a service contract, simple service contract. You can terminate it. I'm not very clear what the problem is. I'm not getting the problem.
So we'll take last two queries, or you find there, because
15 minutes more are there, whatever number of queries.
Very well.
But if that person wants to clarify the facts, then I can be little more.
Just a moment. This query is by Mr. Avdut Sumant. If he's there, maybe we can unmute him and he can.
Yes, एक मिनट हूँ करूँ इन्हें. अवधूत सुमन ने?
Yes.
हाँ, अवधूत भाई अपनी साथे लाइन पर है.
Mr. Sumant, please go ahead. Avdut bhai?
Yes. See, my query is like, if there is a minimum guaranteed offtake gas supply contract, or I'm discharging the effluent in the particular pipeline with a particular treating agent or treating services, naturally my total effluent output is less. I'm not able to consume the gas to the minimum guaranteed contract. This is happening because I'm not able to fully function. I'm closed by virtue of the notification. That was the query, that there is a continuous.
No, is there a force majeure clause in it?
In one contract there is, in another contract there is no. So that is also the query which I had sent it to Parth. That can there be conjoint application of 32 and 56 together in one contract?
No, it may not apply 32 and 56 together, may not apply in light of energy watchdog. Okay. But whenever there is no contract, you can raise the plea of 56 that you cannot perform your minimum guaranteed offtake requirements for this period of 3 months. because of force majeure event. And in case where there is a clause, you will have to interpret the clause and bring it within the four corners of the clause.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So the next query is, there is a contract with a force majeure clause to deliver a custom software in say 8 months duration. If due to the lockdown, it is not possible to perform the duty for 2 months or whatever period, then can the delivery timeline be extended, or we will have to put additional resources and deliver the software within the remaining balance period?
But since time is the essence of the contract, you may be able to raise the contention that you may not be able to deliver within that time, and you cannot expect yourself to be delivering within time.
The next question. Yes,
but the problem may be that they may tell you the issue would be there. I believe that it's always better to negotiate, because the defense can come up. And if you don't want to supply within 8 months, we will treat it as frustrated. So you have to renegotiate it, because you don't want it to be treated as frustrated, because you are losing the contract. Ultimately, when you argue 56, the contract comes to an end.
That's right. So if a force majeure clause is present in the contract, but a pandemic is not covered, what recourse is available?
I said that you will have to read the clause. Is it in the nature of saying that only flood, riot, and say earthquake and none others? Then it will not be covered. Then the issue which will crop up would be that if it is not covered under force majeure clause, can you plead section 56? It may be very difficult in light of energy watchdog.
Can a party send a notice of arbitration or rescind the contract in case of a multinational agreement between parties? That is, a case of one party being in India and another being in Hong Kong. Agreement contains a generic force majeure clause.
Can you repeat it again?
Yes.
It's little...
Yes. Can a party send a notice of arbitration or rescind the contract in case of a multinational agreement between parties where one party is based in India and the other party is based in Hong Kong? The agreement contains a generic or a standard force majeure clause.
I will answer. First issue which you will have to test is to read the force majeure clause. Whatever be the generic clause, whether that will apply to the fact situation or not is first question. Second question is that this is a temporary phenomena, not a permanent phenomena. Having decided these two factors, that because force majeure clause usually contain a provision that not more than 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, something of that sort. Now, having considered these two situations, assuming you are in a position to terminate, the question of termination doesn't arise, so you should not rescind the contract. Your stand should be that the contract is frustrated or is become pursuant to force majeure clause impossible of performance. The language should not be rescission of contract, because then rescission would be an act on the part of a party.
Whether the lockdown can be considered as a change in law which is applied as under the Epidemic Act subsequent to a force majeure event of COVID? If yes, whether the cost implications can be claimed in case of a construction contract? So should I read?
No, I have followed it. First of all, lockdown is a change of law. Whether cost implications can be claimed by you, I believe that you have entered into a contract with a purchaser to sell him some property. The fact that there is a cost implication on you may not entitle you to claim that from him.
So just an added
that
query.
Is the question. I believe that is the question.
An added query to this, if it is, say for example, a contract which is executed between a for construction or for infrastructure, where the person, he is a contractor who's supposed to engage in the fulfillment of the contract, where, for example, mining or setting up a railway line, etc. In such a situation, can this be treated as a change of law, and therefore in a situation of a change of law, if the contract would provide for claiming of added costs from the employer?
If the contract provides, you can certainly claim it.
On the ground of change of law?
Yeah, because this is a law. This is a change of law. You are asked not to work. You are asked to be inside the house by a statutory provisions. So then you can claim it if you are entitled to claim it under the contract.
So there is one query which says that there is
But this is not really speaking an answer on force majeure or frustration.
Correct.
It's a pure question of interpretation of the contract.
Contract, absolutely. If the contract has no reference or provision for pandemic in force majeure clause, but the clause provides for suspension of contract due to government action.
This is government action.
Correct. Will today's situation be covered by it and protection can be claimed?
What protection? I do not know. Do you want the contract to come to an end? Or what type of protection you want? That's the issue. Protection as per the terms of the force majeure clause certainly will apply, because this is government issue of law.
So there are certain repeated queries which I'm just...
Because now I think we have only 5 minutes left.
Yes. I think most of it, sir, is covered.
Because large number will be repeated, because
yes, most of them are getting repeated, sir. I think we are pretty much...
Only one comment to all of you. See, whenever you are applying your mind on a particular contract, 2 questions should be posed by you. Do you want the contract to stand frustrated as a result of that? If not, the question will always be of renegotiating. Even if it's a short-term force majeure, and time is the essence of the contract.
Sir, one last question. Suppose I have booked a flight ticket for future date, which fell during the pandemic period. I get the option either to get the money refunded or a future date can be selected. The future date of the price of the flight increases. Can I claim the difference amount?
No, no. You can only get the money back.
I think so that should be all.
This is not a claim for damages. You are not claiming damages. Because they are also unable to perform because of the same reason as you are unable to perform. It's a frustration of the contract. It is not a claim for damages for breach. If they do not carry you, you can claim damages. Fine.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for the valuable time that you spared. I'm sure all the guests and the participants who've been listening to the lecture would have benefited. We'll see you tomorrow again, same time at 4 o'clock. Mr. Anshin Desai will be speaking on Order 7, Rule 11.
I am aware of it.
Of CPC. Thank you so much. Stay home, stay safe.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you very much, sir.